You know, for those of you who have watched me or just tag as a whole as of late, you kind of know that this is not necessarily something that I want to come on here and talk about.
That's fucking bullshit.
Mainly because I've kind of just put off on the whole just talking about punk situation stuff because it's always something. And this is just become a wildfire of everything to the point to where you can't really dodge it. So I'll put it to you like this situation, my personal opinion, I think it's all basically, it could be just a big stunt. You know, I think it could be a big situation where, you know, we got All In coming out, or coming up rather, and it's just enough of a firestorm to get as much eyes on AEW, on Punk, because again, it's what controversy does. Controversy promotes more eyes on a product, and who better to do that than Punk, especially since his whole media scrum did a shitload of that last year. So it's, you know, we had the fallout at all, or the brawl out at All Out, and well, I don't have a good name for what All In could be, but it doesn't matter. But we're going to get into the hypotheticals because again, we already know what I believe or what I think that this could possibly be. But let's just take this whole situation and say that this is not what it's supposed to be. And let's go into the hypotheticals or the potential truths. Who knows? But anyway, let's roll that mother effing intro.
Free fall as I dive through the kaleidoscope in my mind. No rope up to climb. Gotta remind myself that I'm fine. Mama, I don't really want to.
Now, this could be anything. I mean, you can easily throw any type of situation in there and say, you know, hey, this is what it is. But let's just say for the sake of sakes, and that this is a situation where TK has allowed Punk to just be off the leash completely, and he's just running roughshod on the whole Collision empire, so to speak. And he has free reigns to do whatever the hell he wants to do. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing at all for business, for the roster.
There are literally stars lined up looking for chances to wrestle in AEW.
For anybody that you have in a set position that has power, you know, I'm talking about the EVPs. I'm talking about, you know, the guys who run backstage. I'm talking about guys who run creative, you know, guys who run talent relations. All of this, you know, if you start giving Punk permission to do things that these people that you already have set in place to do, then that becomes a problem, and you're going to get an upset roster in the process.
But you don't listen to me.
And none of it is right, you know. Now, one thing that I will say is that as far as Collision goes, Collision has been basically what Rampage should have been, you know.
Let's fucking go.
Now, granted, I love the fact that Collision is on Saturday. You know, I've said my piece on a lot of things in regards to Collision, but I think it does more good than harm, you know. So I think it's put a lot more eyes on the product, and I'm surprised, you know, with the way that they've executed it to the point to where it actually works out better for them. I mean, you can look at all the guys that are actually benefiting from it. You know, you do have Amiro and Andrade, who did have their personal gripes with TK at certain points based on booking. You know, Malachi Black is another one who actually had their own issues, but for the most part, I think they have the correct roster for Collision to help build that as a brand. And the fact that they're doing it in a way to where it's like, hey, you want to see these superstars, you want to see the professionals on this roster, then you need to tune in here. You want to see these matches, you need to tune in here. You know, they're not doing the same thing that they're doing on Dynamite on Saturday and vice versa. You know, it's rare that you see any of these guys on Dynamite, if that, even if you get the chance to see them on Dynamite. You know, FTR, I believe, is the last guys that I've seen on there, you know, that basically have been primarily on Collision. You know, it does suck that you have both sets of tag titles on Collision, but at the same time, you know, if you have these workhorses and they want to be on that show, then I would say, hey, by all means, go ahead, throw House of Black on there. Go ahead and throw FTR on there. Go ahead and throw the Acclaim on there. You know, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt at all. So I think in that regard, if this is Punk's doing in that sense, then yeah, then at that point have that level of influence to help push the creativity of that show. Like, allow his buck to stop right there, no pun intended. But let's not give him free reign over everything as a whole, to where you're allowing him to dictate who's getting the push and who's getting screen time and who's able to show up to the show, who can't show up to the show. You know, the thing is with Punk is that I believe that he wants to be a locker room leader so bad, you know, especially if you go back and you think about how his run in WWE went, where, you know, people like Undertaker wanted him to be a certain level of champ, and he never fit that description. And anytime that he didn't, they would tell him. You know, I think that there's a little bit of spite that's there, where now it's like, hey, I'm in this position, I'm going to be the one that calls the shots. I'm going to be the one that does this. And I feel like, yeah, as far as your experience goes within professional wrestling, yeah, you've earned that level of respect. But just because you have that level of respect ring-wise and longevity-wise with the experience you have, that doesn't necessarily make you a locker room leader. So you can't really force yourself into that position and expect people to fall in line. It doesn't work like that.
Okay, we're moving on.
Now, I believe the relationships that he does have does help. You know, I think that, you know, he and FTR, that's a genuine relationship. I think the relationship that he has with Starks, with Hobbs, you know, with an Andrade, I believe that these are relationships that he has, that he has solidified into the reasons as to why these guys are so gung-ho with staying over there and falling in line, because they're in a beneficial position. And I think it helps them in the long run. However, when you think about the longevity of the company as a whole, if you piss too many people off, you're going to have yourself in hot water, and you're going to get yourself in a situation that's akin to what happened at the media scrum, where regardless of whether if it was a publicity stunt or not, you put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, especially one, people who don't understand what's going on, and two, people who don't take kindly to just that realm of thinking as a whole, you know. And I think if they tend to rub people in the wrong way too long, too often, it's going to become a situation where you're going to end up hurting AEW in the process, you know, especially when you think about the relationship that Punk and TK have, because it's again, I mean, this is prime example. But outside of that, you can't blame Punk too much. And I know a lot of people want to do that because he seems to be the catalyst in all this, but if you don't have anybody to rein him in, then you can't blame him, especially if everybody who watched professional wrestling, everybody who's in the know in professional wrestling understands Punk's attitude, his ego, everything. And it's the same thing. Like if you take a toddler and you give a toddler a gun and that toddler shoots someone, you're not going to get mad at the toddler. I mean, you're not going to get mad at the gun for having shot someone. It's going to be the toddler. You can't get mad at the gun or the toddler. You got to get mad at the person. I know I said that shit completely wrong, but it's okay. I sum that up to basically say that TK is the issue. And I think the problem with TK is the fact that he spends so much time fanboying. And it was cool. It's cool at first. You know, it's cool, you know, when it's your new thing, it's your passion. Any one of us who was in that same position would have done the exact same thing.
You fucking mark!
If we had that amount of money to make our own wrestling promotion, to put people in place, to hire more people, there would have been a sense of entitlement, an ego that we would have had to say, you know what, we're going to step up against WWE. We're going to put ourselves in a position to where now we're becoming one of the big companies out there who can stand toe to toe with WWE. So that ego is warranted to an extent. But the problem here is when you allow yourself to lessen your status as a CEO, as a boss, as the head, and you put yourself in the same equal standing with the talent that you've hired, and you become friends with them, and that's all that people see.
The only position you should be assuming is behind the guardrail with all of them.
People aren't going to look at you the same way that they look at a Vince McMahon. Hell, they're not even, they're going to put you in the same, they're going to put you on the same playing field as a Dixie Carter.
Thank you.
Somebody who's there to sign checks, but does not get the respect. You know, that's not the way that you want. That's not the way that you should want things to go. You know, you should be the person who's like, you know what? He's somebody who was a mark like us. He's somebody who was a fanboy like us. He's somebody who grew up watching wrestling like us. He understands what we want. You don't want to be that guy who's in the audience with the fans. You want to be the guy that's behind the camera, who's behind the scenes, who's orchestrating everything that's going on, that's giving the fans what they want. You don't want to sit there and put people in place and then go in with everybody else and then watch it with everybody else. You can't do that. You're in a position where you're not allowed that anymore. I know we meme about the whole hugs thing, and it is funny.
Yeah. but nevertheless, it is bullshit what he said.
You know, but at a certain point, when that becomes the norm of what we all see, and that's what we have come to known for so long, then it becomes a situation where it's like, okay, well now it's becoming a situation where I don't know if he's going to be the right person put in this position.
That's a shitty opinion. It's the most bullshit opinion I've ever heard.
You know, it's bad enough that you have your EVPs as talent on the roster. You know, it was different when Cody was there, because at least Cody understood how to kind of step back and kind of do his thing. Yeah, he pushed the people that he wanted to push, but I think he wore the EVP role a little bit better than the Bucks or Kenny Omega, you know. So with this situation, it's rocky. It's rocky, especially when you have Punk, of all people, in this type of position. Does he have the influence? Yeah. Does he have the respect from certain people? Yes. But the problem is his ego.
This fucking guy, he fucking did the Friday Night War. He did the First Dance. He's done the record Double or Nothing. He did the record All Out. And then he showed up, did the biggest program in terms of everything, TV, box ever with MJF. And then he did the goddamn main event here. He's the biggest part of financial success in the history of this company. Let's fucking go.
Punk, for the better part of a decade, has had one hell of a chip on his shoulder, thanks to WWE, thanks to professional wrestling fans, and just how things have gone in general. So you have that, and then you give him the power to act with that level of animosity that he's had for so long, then it becomes an issue.
I appreciate that.
I should have just taken it head on because you never said anything.
But I'm trying to run a fucking business.
And again, I'm not saying Punk is the main problem here. He's a problem.
I'm hurt and I'm old and I'm fucking tired and I work with fucking children.
But he wouldn't be that big of a problem if he was controlled. And Tony Khan isn't doing that. Tony Khan, you know, even if you go back to the media scrum, or any matter of fact, if you go to any media scrum that he sat with Punk at, he has completely just fanboy to the fucking moon, and it's not a good look for him. So I just think that there's way too many glaring issues within AEW that TK needs to worry about, rather than just allowing Punk to do what he does and then being there to watch everything, because you're not watching Punk in a way that's like, okay, I'm supervising the situation. You're watching Punk because you're in awe of what he's doing.
Yeah. We don't need to. Everybody's got a shitty opinion, so just let them have it.
I just want to, see it from this perspective versus I'm in Gorilla. I need to make sure everything's going good. Hey, Punk, let's not do this. Or hey, Punk, let's not do that. Hey, you can't talk to this guy this way. Hey, you can't send this guy home. Hey, you got to make sure that if you're going to be a leader, you need to make sure that you're actually talking to these guys the way that a Bryan Danielson or a Chris Jericho or a Jon Moxley.
Fuck you.
He doesn't have that same aura or that same standing as a Chris Jericho or Jon Moxley or a Bryan Danielson. Yeah, he's wrestled as long as these guys have, but he hasn't evolved, and I think that's where that almost 10-year gap has pulled him away from. He's still in that mentality where he was in WWE going up against John Cena and dealing with the situations with The Rock and the politics of everything. He hasn't gone through the point to where he's come out of that war torn, for lack of a better term. So he hasn't been able to grow into, that status as, the respectable locker room leader where people can actually go to and, and say, hey, what would you do? Punk is still being Punk. And that's a little bit his fault. That's somewhat not his fault at the same time. But yeah, I think if he would have came back and he would have signed with WWE, I think that, it probably would have been a little bit rocky, but I think he would have gotten a little bit of the act right, so it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because Collision is flourishing, and I think with a lot of these rumors and situations coming out so consistently, it's going to put a damper on the show as a whole, not even to talk about AEW as a whole, but just Collision. You're going to end up having it crumble as fast as Rampage is crumbling, and it doesn't deserve that, especially with the amount of work and effort that they've been putting into the shows every weekend, so hopefully this is a situation where, like I said in the beginning, it's just them just trying to get more eyes on the company. It's a publicity stunt. It's them just trying to get more people talking about it. I would appreciate that, but if it's not, and everything that they're saying is actually true, oh boy, it's not going to be looking good after All In. So we'll see what happens. But like I said, hopefully it's a situation where it's done for the better and this kind of fizzles out into a positive crescendo. But if it doesn't, then we'll be here to talk about it then. But this is my last time talking about this shit for now, because we got other stuff to talk about. But yeah, it is what it is. So whether you loved it, hate it, don't forget to rate it, thumbs up, thumbs down, leave all your comments, concerns, questions down below. If you disagree, agree, leave all that down below as well. But until you see this handsome face and hear this immaculate voice, I bid you all adieu. And until next time, you beautiful, beautiful mother effers, tag the fucking out.
Let's fucking go. but nevertheless, it is bullshit what he said.
Dollars make a way to make a change. Gotta be insane to make those same mistakes again. So I'm switching lane to lane.